Trish L. Gleason, Assistant City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Monday, August 1st, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. in the Historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting work sessions on workforce housing needs and historic building rehabilitation and preservation.
Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for August 1st, 2022. As a reminder to our in-person and online viewers and listeners, due to the nature of tonight's meeting topic, public input is not accepted. However, you may contact the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/council contacts. Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Councilmember Barber?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Resnick?
Here.
Roussel?
Here.
Sprank?
Here.
Wethel?
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan?
Here.
City Attorney Brumwell?
Here.
All right. So our first work session, I believe, is the workforce housing
Housing
needs.
Correct.
All right. And I believe we have Dave Lyons. You're going to kick us off here? All right. Thank you.
More than happy to. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, Dave Lyons. I'm a innovations consultant with Greater Dubuque Development Corporation. Our offices are at 900 Jackson Street. This is the second of a two-part presentation. As you remember, several meetings ago, we had a conversation about the status and impact of workforce housing, what the shortage meant for the city of Dubuque, and early efforts that were trying to be undertaken in that middle market workforce housing. This presentation tonight is going to extend on that and talk about access and affordability to housing, and then point to a future comprehensive strategy that the city may want to consider. Just as a reminder about the need is there. It's homeowner vacancy rates incredibly low. New units built as a percent of housing available in the community, very low. And you match all that up with projected employment growth. If we've got a problem, it's only going to get worse. The need in numbers, again, we have 11,092 workforce housing units we're short right now as a projection. And even if we take our best trend at what we've been developing in recent years, we're only going to get 681. So even if we were to do our best, we're going to be half short. The need in numbers, also as far as equity, pretty significant. 43% of Dubuque renters spend more than 30% of their income on housing. By federal definition, that is housing burdened. And Dubuque renters that spend more than 50% of their income on housing is over a quarter, and that is severely housing burdened. Distressed workforce housing community. We had independent housing analysis done by the housing component of the East Central Intergovernmental Association, Iowa Association, that basically noted some additional statistics that we were unaware of, such as a very short period of time that housing units were on the market here in Dubuque, much shorter than national average, and the significant increase in average sales prices. They reached the same conclusion we had reached, and that is that analysis says that we have a very important and critical shortage of housing for workforce. Now a little bit more to get into the analysis of the challenge. Most of the times when you see these figures, people are not telling you to change this into this, as they say with our children. But that's Dubuque's challenge, and let me explain further. Usually in a market, you will have the market respond in a norm that follows the average demand or capacity for that market to purchase. And what would normally look like is we would have a small number of homes at the very low income, small number of homes at the very high cost, but most of them spread in an arc that reflects the economy that's actually happening in the community. Unfortunately, Dubuque is the opposite right now. And the opposite is because we have trended toward higher income, higher priced homes. And when those get built, they generate the largest amount of money the city can use for low and moderate income housing. So the market naturally is creating high income houses, high value houses, providing the city with income it can only use for low and moderate income housing, which means the middle market gets left behind. What should it look like in Dubuque? It should look like this. This is your market norm in Dubuque. And as you can see, the largest average income percentage is in that $50,000 to $75,000 range. So we need housing which is focused on this type of an arc. However, our supply does not match that in any manner. Right now, the median household income for the last census 2020 was $54,938 in the city of Dubuque. If you use conservative banker numbers, you would have the ability to purchase a home for $160,000. The average sales price of homes last year, 2021, was $231,800, and the average cost of a new unit added to our marketplace was $380,000. So as you can see, that's a heck of a gap between what our market would naturally look to purchase or could afford and what's being supplied. And it doesn't get any better. Average non-white household is $36,854, which means that's $100,100 that a conservative banker's approach to a mortgage would be. And as you can see, that gap now between $36,000 and $380,000 is huge. Even if you take the best possible information, which I personally am not a fan of, and that is the HUD average household income for housing that they predict is available in Dubuque, which is $87,540. You still cannot find any new housing being built in Dubuque that would be affordable to anyone in that workforce moving to town. So whether you look at the lowest, the average, or the highest way to look at it, we are still significantly off of what the market should be generating if it's responding to workforce needs in Dubuque. Again, it's not going to get any better. As you can see, property sold up, average sales price up, median permit value way up, number of units to be listed way down, which means that's no surprise that when you're getting, at times, quarters in Dubuque, quarters of a year, where the average amount of time a housing unit is available for purchase is an average of 10 days. That's the people calling and saying, I don't have time to get to Dubuque to look at the house, I'm just buying it, which is really not the norm that you should have in a housing market. Another interesting issue that has come up is that we are adding additional single-family homes here and there in the community, and Dubuque for many, many years had a very high percentage of single-family home ownership. Is there something else happening in the market? As you can see, I think there is. Every one of those dots represents a single-family home that's been converted to a rental unit. And a lot of people would reach the conclusion that this happens a lot in dense, older neighborhoods downtown. Take a look at the map. It is happening everywhere in Dubuque. Recently, I was contacted by a realtor who heard a rumor of a business housing development that was being planned for Dubuque, and wanted to know, were they single-family homes? And I said, I can't share too much, but we certainly hope so. He said, good. I have an investor who would like to buy those homes to turn into rentals as soon as they're ready. So there is a continuing process out there. Not that rental homes are bad, it's just that rental homes that are removing the ability to purchase and gain equity are not a good thing for an economy overall. I toyed with whether to leave this slide in or not, and I thought I should. Here's your catch-22, Dubuque. This house rents for $1,600, and it rented immediately. The property was last sold in 1998 for $53,000. Its assessed value of this property on Beacon, which is the county assessor process, $140,880. If you had a family that could put $10,000 down and a 4.9% interest rate, the mortgage payment with taxes and insurance would be $1,038. Here's the problem. If you're moving to Dubuque, if you rent, you may not be able to buy. $1,600 versus $1,038. So, strategies that we just talked about. First of all, obviously increased support for workforce housing, and through tax increment financing and urban revitalization are the best tools you tend to have available. Allow developers an expanded use of TIF through urban revitalization for developments that are at least 50% middle market workforce housing, and place the remaining potential TIF or urban revite funds in pools to support affordable mortgages for middle income workforce LMI buyers. And one of the things that I would recommend is partnering with financial institutions to get far more leverage in the marketplace. Adding a little bit to have somebody else take the loan on allows your funds to go a lot farther. The reason why we think it needs to be both is the gap is so big in Dubuque between what workforce coming to Dubuque can afford and what the market offers, is that we think you have to have both a strategy to bring new housing costs down and a strategy to bring what the workforce can afford up. So step one, help the developers bring the costs down. Step two, help the buyers be able to step up with their banks to get a better purchasing opportunity through lower mortgages, city incentives to bring down the cost, et cetera. Expand your workforce housing tools. Right now, it's a little bit of a pickle for the community. The largest source for most communities in the Midwest of housing dollars are through the federal home program. Dubuque is just a little bit too small to actually get direct home dollars. So it needs to participate in the state's pool. However, the state's pool is focused on rural areas and underserved areas in less populated portions of the state. So it's a little like your CDBG program. Luckily, the city of Dubuque gets its own CDBG dollars for you to be able to determine how to use. In this case, you don't. But the state program doesn't focus on high-density urban areas where your funds are most needed. So there's work that needs to be done here. The second is to develop and support a process for Dubuque applying for every financing program. Just an example. Last year, the governor was able to use some ARPA dollars and created a fund so that anyone who was doing a low-income tax project would be able to have additional help with paying for that project. Dubuque had 0 applications in that year. So there was, can't remember, it was $20 or $25 million in extended funding that Dubuque did not qualify for, because we should have had a checklist to basically say we should have applications in on every one of these programs, whether it's the local housing trust fund activities, national housing trust fund activities, workforce housing tax credit, low and moderate income 4 and 9% applications, et cetera. We probably, working together, public and private sector, could do a better job of making sure that we're using every tool in the box. And the third is to engage and market with area developers and builders. There is misinformation out there, and there is good information out there. The misinformation tends to move faster. Dubuque's hard to build in. There's no land left in Dubuque. The city rules drive prices up more than they do in other communities. Most of that is untrue, but it is the myth out there, and it's something that I think is important for the city to address directly. And you do that through outreach that I know is already beginning to happen with developers and builders to say, what is it you want to accomplish? What are your concerns? How do we remove those concerns and move forward? The last item that I forgot to put on here was, and make sure people know you're open for business. We did a little experiment. Everybody said it's too hard to find available property in Dubuque. So what we did is we worked with Wally, who gave us a map of the city of all of the parcels above 5 acres that would have available access without undue costs to city water and sewer, et cetera, are within the city limits and could be zoned for housing, and that did not have to be used for other purposes, whether it's a park or an industrial park, et cetera. And then I and an assistant just started calling. And we called probably 50 people, and of those 50, half of them said, no way, that's my backyard, that's my dad's farm, et cetera. Half said they'd be open to talking to people. More than one said, how did you know who I was? Because that was my dad's old farm that my brother had and then transferred to me, and I live in Iowa City. Well, that's the beauty of the internet. We can find just about anything if you look hard enough. But there's an individual who said, yep, I've got 38 acres. I'd be more than willing to see homes built on that. I just have never gotten around to it. Have them call me. And then he said, before 9:30 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it's like, okay, that's even really good, because now we know he's there. So we have that map. Continue to expand buyers' capacity for home purchase. This is a little outside my area, so if color commentary needs to come from the city, I know Alexis will give it to us. You have a housing choice voucher home ownership program. That's an excellent program that's probably underutilized by financial institutions. First-time home buyer loan program, single-family affordable homes, Washington neighborhood program, all existing. We need to stabilize the rental market. That's another big piece of this. Improve and maintain your existing rental stock. We're losing workforce housing, not just in single-family homes, but in lost apartments. And unfortunately, this is a reality in Dubuque. These are apartments, lots of them, that cannot be rented because they have fallen so far into disuse. And I will tell you, these are not downtown. These are all on the near west side that you're looking at here. Increased inspection capacity you already have. That's excellent. Targeted enforcement on problem landlords. Keep it up. Ability to act directly on nuisance properties, one of the most important things that you've added recently, and I think you're beginning to see that effort bear fruit in the marketplace. I think you might want to develop an early warning system for aging rental properties, where we're beginning to spot these issues before they go to the point where the owners on their own cannot rectify the situation. So the second thing I think you can do with the rental market is increase capacity and obviously work to approve areas for multifamily and low and moderate income housing to increase interest. There are communities that people believe are not open to new development. And it doesn't take a whole lot of articles and reports about people turning applications in and being turned down because it wasn't in the right place, or it wouldn't be renting to the right people, or it wasn't being built by the right builders before you get crossed off a list. One of the things that we have developers looking for are areas where the city has already said, this is an area that we want low and moderate income housing, multifamily housing to be. We've already started to have the conversations, It's supported. You're not going to be walking into a firefight every time you try to put an application together. So some communities are starting this, it's something you might want to consider. And this is that project that I talked about. Not complete in any means, but as you can see there, there's probably 600 acres, easy, of developable land, and another 600 acres that's adjacent that could be worked with. So this is, if we can go to developers and to say, there are properties available for purchase, and they can be made available for multifamily housing and dense single family workforce housing, you will have a lot of developers suddenly interested in Dubuque. Obviously, in continued support for affordability, I think, again, said it before, the Housing Choice Voucher Program is an asset that's underutilized. So there. Questions for me?
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Resnick.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Could you tell me how this is different than the usual supply and demand, where the developers are trying to make the most money they can and the buyers are trying to spend the least amount of money they can, and somehow they arrange and they decide, and if nobody's buying the expensive houses, then the house price goes down. And when a lot of people are buying the lower income homes, then the price goes up. That type of thing. And how is it that we as a government are calling about land that might be developed, and how about those developers and people who want to make money doing what you were doing? How is that different?
Okay. I always like it when the business person gets asked the question, is capitalism really working? In this case, no, it's not. Two things that I would say I am hearing, and I think the market would reflect. First of all, there are options for a limited amount of attention of the private sector, and they're going other places. A comment I shared with you at the last work session. Cornfields don't complain about whether the house is $250,000 or $350,000. So you are seeing population growth and new housing in the county. You're just not seeing it in the city. So you have developers who, in fact, are continuing to develop. But they're also being lured away. I was working with a developer who said, I'm going to put a project in Dubuque on hold because I'm waiting for some information, and I'm going to do one in Davenport. And if the Dubuque one isn't ready, then I'll do one in Cedar Rapids. Or we had a developer just call us the other day that basically said, okay, I did a project in Cedar Rapids. I'm going to do one in Hiawatha. I'd like to do one next year in Dubuque. This is the package I need. And that's not how we've worked in the past. In the past, it's been like, okay, you come and tell us what you're going to do, and we'll tell you what we are willing to do with you. Well, that's kind of like the argument we used to have on single-factor sales formula at the state. Remember, Iowa had what looked to most people to be an extraordinarily high tax rate. But if you went through the single-factor tax formula, et cetera, you could explain to somebody that we really weren't that high in taxes. And the problem is you don't get that chance with 50% of the people who never call. They just simply say, oh, wow, cross that off the list, call the next thing. So I'd say the first issue is that you have a supply issue. We have a limited number of developers. They'll go where it's easiest to develop. The second issue is you have a internal cost basis in Dubuque that's a bit high. If you've noticed, you've got a river, a lot of floodplains, a lot of rock. There are opportunities to get a return on investment for purchasing land in Dubuque, but you sometimes maximize your return on investment by maximizing the value of the home you build on that lot. And I think for a lot of developers, that's also happening in Dubuque, which is I paid quite a bit for that lot, and it's really expensive to make land flat in Dubuque. So I'm going to not look at workforce housing. I'm going to take a shot at selling that in 600, 700, 800,000 because that maximizes my return. To a certain extent, that's capitalism working, but it's not working on a broader basis to reflect demand within the community. So I guess the two of those issues go back to my presentation. We need to do a better job of being aggressive and making sure that developers, whether they live here now or could be lured here, to do business in Dubuque and to focus on workforce housing. And the second is find out ways to bring down the cost of a lot in Dubuque so that you don't have to build a $700,000 house to get a return on investment.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Spring.
Thank you, Dave, for all this lovely information. My question is on slide 16, the conversion to rental. Do you have a time frame when that all started or ballpark it? Like, is that over a 5-year period? It's when Dubuque has 1,741 properties that have been rental.
Oh, yeah, I
Single
remember that
family.
one.
Like just over like a
The
10-year period?
measles one, we call it.
Yes, like over a 10-year period?
I believe it is
Ish.
at least over that.
This is current. This is the current.
Yep. This is current information, but I think the question is how far back does it go? Did this all happen in the last 5 years or 10 years?
Great. Housing and Community Development Director, Alexis Steiger. So our data doesn't actually show exactly when they converted because we switched softwares about 6 years ago. So we don't have anything past those 6 years of data. So within the past 6, we've seen a significant trend on the west end of switching rental units, and that's just data showing us new permits pulled. But those are just within the last 6 years that we can
6
show.
years, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
And Milligan City Manager. So while we can't answer that question locally, it's well documented that in 2008, 2009, 2010, during the Great Recession, which was caused by a mortgage housing crisis, that this is what happened nationally. It's across the country. People were losing their homes and investors were coming in and snatching them up and turning them into rentals. So I can't tell you how many of that happened with these in that last.
But we could at least say from 2008-ish,
Yes.
possibly, you
I'm
know,
betting that
probably sooner
while
though.
some of that existed here before, it greatly accelerated in that time period, just like it did nationally.
So I guess I have a follow-up, kind of the same thing. So we know this is happening, and I know we don't want to do this either. I almost feel like, has there ever been a discussion of putting a moratorium on, not in communities, but just like, okay, so say you have a block that has 10 houses. Like I can list my block. 8 of them are rentals. Is there any discussion of like, okay, you cannot put any more rentals on a block? Is that even legal? And I don't even know if that's legal. It probably isn't, but I'm assuming it isn't. But has that ever been discussed?
The first step we think is safe to take is more an enforcement step, and that is we believe this is underreported. So the first step would be people who have made these conversions that don't report them until they're found. So that's the first step I think that's important to take. The second one I'm just going to take is kind of go back to Councilman Resnick's comment. Supply and demand reacts. And if you start saying we're not going to let developers develop homes that turn into rental in Dubuque, that's not a good thing either. So I think maybe the issue lies in the incentives for people to be able to purchase and maintain their homes on their own versus being constantly in a situation where they're in rental properties that get bought out from underneath them.
All right, we are officially out of time for this work session, so I know we have more questions. I know we have a lot more we'd like to discuss, and I look forward to discussing a lot more of it, especially since we are coming up on goal setting, and I think that this is a topic that we've been hearing quite a bit about. So I know I'm a person that's going to be talking about it in goal setting, and I'm guessing all of us will too. So thank you very much, both Alexis and Dave, for that work session.